Okay, we're going to try and answer that practice 7b question. First thing we need to do is give it a name. Create the program. It's a Java main. I'm going to get rid of all this. I've already got some code that I'm going to paste over top. We're going to be working with array lists inside of here. Actually, let's save that. We'll just run the code. And you can see we're able to output hello world, so success so far. Next thing we're going to do is actually read through the description for the project and see if we can come up with anything that stands out in terms of how we're going to solve this thing. So the answers are third line. The answers are represented as strings of length 1, with an omitted answer being represented by a string containing a single question mark. Okay, I'll highlight that as well too. These answers are stored in an array list, okay, in which the position of the answer corresponds to the question number on the test. Question number started at 0. The student's score on the test is computed by comparing the student's answers with the corresponding answers and the answer key for the test. Okay, it all makes sense. 1 point is awarded for each correct answer and a quarter point is deducted for each incorrect answer. Omitted answers, indicated by question mark, do not change the student's score. Okay, so all sounds good. And here's our student answer sheet method, at least the basics of it, and we're going to need to complete for part A, the method getScore. You notice there's also another incomplete method down here called getName. Won't worry about that for now. Okay, so write the student answer sheet method, getScore, okay. The parameter passed to method getScore is an array list of strings representing the correct answer key for the test being scored. The method is going to compute and returns a double. Okay, it represents the score. All right, and we've already gone through the rest of that. So let's close this down and let's get back and get to work here. How do you even know where to begin? Well, first thing, let's start by creating that class. So we'll add a new file. .java is the extension. Hopefully I spelled that right. And we do have a little bit of code that we can put inside there. I've got that in a different file. I'll just copy that over. Public string get name, okay, and so we'll just return for now, just so we don't get an error. Okay, we can always fix that later. It is a string they're expecting, that's why we did it that way. And let's try to run this now, see what we get. Oh, we got a couple errors. May have forgotten to declare array list. Right, okay, so that's going to be our first problem. Let's go back here and let's just go array list. That's all we really need to import. Copy that. We'll paste that as the first line and we'll save and rerun. I'm just going to get rid of one error at a time here. Good. And now we're missing a return statement. Yeah, no surprise there. It says double, so we need to return a double. Let's just return 0.0 for now. Again, we're just trying to get rid of errors and get things up and running. Okay, so the next thing we need to do before we really get going here is we've got to actually create some answer sheets. And the first answer sheet we've got to create is going to be the answer key. And we already know it's going to be an array list of strings. Then we need to populate it. We can use the add method to do that. So we'll answer key.add. And let's say the answer to the first question is, whoops, something happened with the brackets there. There we go, .add a. I'm just going to copy and paste that. Let's just say there's 5 answers, and the second one is B, third is D, maybe C, and then back to A. Okay. Save. I'm going to try to run to make sure I don't have any silly errors in there. Perfect. Could do a quick check here. Let's just change this from hello world to answer key. And there we go, ABDCA. Okay, that works fine. Let's copy this. And now what we're going to do is produce our student answer sheet. So it's going to be answers, Mark will say first. Copy that. And we want to make sure that we're using the correct name or instance of an array list here that we're adding the values to. And Mark didn't get them all right. Sorry, Mark. Let's go D. I'll throw a question mark in there. So one's missing one answer was wrong. Okay, so you can figure out how that should score. Let's make one more. And this, instead of Mark, this is going to be Maria. And we're going to copy that. And we'll save and run our code. Okay, and it's still just printing out the answer key. We could check both of the other ones if we wanted to. I mean, we copied and pasted them, so there's little chance we're going to get anything wrong, but that is Mark's. Okay, good, and we don't need that anymore. We can get rid of that line. All is good. Let's just fix this up a bit. Let's say that Maria got that one right. Okay, and we'll save. So what's next? Well, we need to make some objects, some student answer sheet objects. We have to make one for each person who wrote the test. So what's that going to look like? And what do we need to send into that? Well, associated with Mark is going to be his scores. So we better send that in before we forget. And we'll save this and try to run it, but I suspect we're going to see an error here. Yeah, constructor student answer sheet and class student answer sheet cannot be applied to given types. Okay, the problem is we're sending in an argument, which is an array list, but that's not specified in the constructor. In fact, there is no constructor here, so we're also going to get some practice making constructors. I'm going to add this in just for clarity, even though we don't need to have a comment like that. And this is going to look something like this. We already know that the argument is going to be an array list of strings. And our instance variable answers, which is an array list, that was given to us, is going to be equal to answer key. Okay, let's see if this is working. See if we fix that error. Okay, all looks good. So the next thing we need to do is start working on getScore. And the first step is going to be to figure out how to even call it. So let's put a return, or let's put a print statement in here. Now, of course, it won't really be working. It's just, it's trying to do whatever it's supposed to do. But we need to call that. How do we do that? How do we call getScore? Well, we should call it using one of our objects. Oh, by the way, before I forget, let's make a Maria object as well. And we better make sure we send in her marks since they're better than marks. And now let's actually use mark dot, because remember we're going to grade his first. Doesn't matter whose we grade first, but we need to run getScore. Mark.getScore. And what do we send into that? It's not his scores. Remember, his scores are associated with his object. We're actually going to send in the answer key. That's what we need to submit. And we also have to do the same with Maria. So we'll copy this, paste it, change that to Maria.getScore.answerKey. So in both cases, we're sending in the same argument, which may seem counterintuitive, but remember, answer key corresponds to the correct answers. The answers that were given by each of the objects are associated with the actual objects that we created. So the Mark object has already his answers associated with him. Maria's got hers associated with her inside of here. Where are those stored? Well, that's where instance variables come into play. So when we created this constructor, we assigned the answers, okay, to answer key. And actually, answer key is a poor choice to use for that. It's not the answer key. It's just answers mark is really what now it's answers is fine. We'll just call it answers. Now, the problem that we have with that is we're using the same variable, so we should use a this. And this is where scope comes in. This variable is different than this variable. This variable is an instance variable that's used inside of this method. Whereas answers is temporarily assigning a value, or not temporarily, but it's assigning a value, a variable name, to the argument which is sent into this method. And we're simply taking the value of that and assigning it to the instance variable. So we could call this whatever we want. In fact, let's just call it whatever. It's always good to use names that actually mean something, but just for clarity's sake, hopefully this isn't more confusing. I'm showing that this variable is independent of answers. And we don't need the this anymore if we're going to actually change the name. There we go. So, okay, so things do seem to be working. What's next? Well, we should finish off getScore. That's going to be the next task here. We've got everything that we need here, and I think what I'm going to do is actually output two things. We're going to first of all output the key, just to see what that looks like. And that should be the correct answers, and it does it once for each object because we are running this twice. Maybe I'll just comment one out for now, just so we don't get too confused. Run that again. And what we'll also do is I'm going to copy this, and we're also going to print out answers. So remember, each time we invoke this method, we're using a different instance of the instance variable answers. Okay, so if we run this now, we're running it for Mark, so that's Mark's answers. If we ran this for Maria, of course, and all we'd have to do is uncomment this, so maybe we'll do that. We'll also see what this looks like for Maria. Okay, so there's the answer key, there's Mark's, there's the answer key, and there's Maria's. So everything seems fine. We're calling this correctly. Let's get this working at long last. So we know that we need a variable that's needs to be a double. We'll call it score. And instead of returning 0, we're going to return the score. And we'll need a for loop, so we need to iterate through all the elements in either the key or answers. It doesn't really matter. They're both the same length. So what we'll do here is just print out each value one at a time inside of the answer key, hopefully. Okay, and it's doing it twice because once again we are calling this twice. I'm going to recomment this out again for Maria. We'll come back and uncomment in a few minutes here. So we could also change this. We could also go answers. It doesn't really make any difference. In fact, that's not going to change anything. We're going to still see the same values because we're using key down here. If we change this to answers, now we'll actually see these values change because it's outputting the values associated with the instance variable answers. What we actually want to do though is we want to compare the two. So we want an if statement here. If that is equal to key, we're dealing with strings, so we can't use two equal signs. So let's just change that now. And all we're doing is testing to see if it's actually finding a match. Oh, and we've got an error here. Okay, so the problem obviously is we can't have a semicolon on the end of that statement. That would mean it's the end of the statement. The end of the statement actually comes at the end of the curly brackets. Silly mistakes. Let's see. And we've got 3 matches, which is what we would expect. Okay, so rather than outputting anything, let's actually go back and work on the score. Okay, there we go. Things look good. We need one more part to this, another if statement. And now we want to go score minus equals 0.25. But there is a problem here. That's if it's equal to this, but in fact, if it's a question mark, which is the only other thing we can test for, otherwise we would have to, the test would get very complex. What we want to do is we want to say if that's not the case, if it's anything but that, so we simply put an exclamation in front. And that means if it's not equal to question mark, deduct minus 2.25. That means now this should also be an else statement. There we go. So if answers are equal to this, the correct answer, increment by 1, or if it's not equal to a question mark, then deduct 0.25. And we don't need to check for the question mark because we don't do anything with that. And so let's just save and hopefully, oh, we have an error here. Yeah, it looks like we need another bracket on the end. Easy thing to forget. And we've got our correct score, so this is excellent. I'm going to get rid of this now. Don't need that inside the method. We'll save. And we could even go like this. Run it again, because that value is returned. And I'm going to copy this. And we're going to run this for Maria as well too. And we should see two different numbers appear, hopefully. There we go. Excellent. So that is, at long last, part A for the test.